Holla! It's Preach, and today's going to be a little fun day for you. I hope you're looking forward to this. This is Moonkins, Laser Turkeys, Space Chickens, whatever you want to call them. That's what we're rocking today. We're going to hit up some big dungeons in our Moonkin. Usual story, we're going to do full talent spec and spells, and then we're going to throw into a heroic dungeon, give you a full demonstration of what's rocking. Now, before we start, let's kick off with the first thing. Moonkins are far more complicated than you would think they are. I'm not going to pretend to tell you absolutely everything about Moonkins in this basic guide. I'm really just not going to do it, guys. I could talk for 40 minutes, and if you've ever heard anybody talk extensively about Moonkins, you do want to put a bullet through your brain to the memory center to make sure that knowledge has left your mind completely. So this is the basic guide. This is going to be as if you just leveled up your chicken. You want to know how to rock up the DPS inside those dungeons, guys, and that's what we're going to do today, okay? In the advanced guide, I'll gladly go through absolutely everything for you, but just for today, we're going to be kicking ass on some basic knowledge. So, what is complicated about Moonkins? It comes down to this one little bar right here. It might be different on your screen. This is what I have on my unit frames. If you want to see my UI, the video is on my channel. Go and check it. Well, basically, this is our energy bar. Our spells fall into two categories of spell magic, okay? That is either nature damage, which comes from our Wrath and our Insect Swarm and our Sunfire. We'll get to that shortly. So those are nature spell damages, okay? Including our mushrooms. And shroomies are brilliant. Shroomies do a lot. So we've got these nature spells. Nature spells give us an energy moving us towards our lunar state of Eclipse. This is our Eclipse bar, guys, okay? So what happens in Eclipse? Well, we also have these arcane spell damages, which are Starfire, Moonfire, Starfall. Those are all arcane spells. So what is Eclipse? Eclipse is our energy bar. Every time we cast a spell of a certain type of magic, be it nature or arcane, it moves our energy bar towards an Eclipse state. As you can see, we've got a yellow and a blue. Yellow is for nature, blue is for arcane. So when we reach this little yellow bar, I'll just show you a quick demonstration. We fire off a Wrath. Watch the yellow bar. Go Wrathy, go Wrathy. See the way it's moved us over to the lunar side, moved us into the blue because we cast a nature spell. Once we hit this big blue area here, what's going to happen is we're going to enter an eclipse. We're going to get this nice glowy blue moon over our heads. And once we're in a blue eclipse, our arcane spells have just been buffed to the fucking teeth. I'm talking serious damage buffs. So once we hit that eclipse, we're going to stop casting nature spells and start hitting up some arcane spells. In general, that's going to mean we're going to stop casting Wrath and start casting Starfire, because Starfire is our arcane spell. Once we hit that lunar eclipse as well, that's when we're going to fire off our Starfall, because that's arcane damage. That's going to be buffed through the fucking teeth. So if you cast Starfall outside of lunar eclipse, you lose a ton of damage, okay, guys? So, and then furthermore, once we get over to our solar is what it's called, but basically our nature eclipse, once we hit that, our Moonfire is going to change to something called Sunfire, which buffs that even more. It's going to buff our Wrath, it's going to buff our Insect Swarm, and it also buffs our mushrooms, because mushrooms are nature damage. Our mushrooms do a shitload of damage even without the buff. Let me drop some shroomies for you. Come here, baby, and then we're going to detonate. Watch the damage. 62,000 damage was generated by just those mushrooms without any sort of buff whatsoever, okay? They're a nice AoE, so when we're AoEing, we're dropping shrooms all over the place. So I hope you get the idea of what this Eclipse bar is and this energy. Nature spells are going to move us over to the lunar, to the blue, because we've just been buffed. What you need to imagine is we've just been buffed by solar, so we're going to start casting all our nature spells, and that's going to start moving us back over to the other eclipse. And all we're doing when we're DPSing is switching between these eclipses here and there. So we're going to go from nature to lunar to nature to lunar, repeat and repeat. So we're either casting Wrath or we're casting Starfire, depending on what our eclipse state is. So let's go into our talents very quickly. As you can see, we've got a 359 gear character. Now, this is my Druid that we also did the Feral Tanking Guide on. So he has buffed his item level heavily from tanking gear. His Moonkin gear is considerably worse than that. Not terrible by any means, and certainly not really bad, but he's got some epics that he's picked up as off-spec, because I was a main tank. So any off-spec leather gear that dropped, I picked that up. So he's got some very basic gear. Let's have a quick review of the talents before we go into gemming and so on. Okay, so what are we picking up? I've gone for a very standard 32-1-8 build. Now, there's a lot of different builds for Moonkins depending on how much AoE you have to do. So very, very good Moonkins choose to do different specs if they've got to do heavy AoE. But I'll talk very briefly about it. Like I said, I don't want to be boring you to death with space turkey jargon, because I can. I really could talk to you all day about it because I'm a turbo nerd. This is World of Warcraft. This is me talking to you guys, but I'm not going to do it. So what do I pick up? 2 out of 2 Nature's Mastery. Increase the critical strike chance of spells by 4%. Enough said. Don't need to talk about that. Starlight Wrath. Reduce the cast time of your Wrath and Starfire spells by half a second. So, considering Wrath and Starfire are filler spells, that's all good. Nature's Grace. Let's have a little read of this. You gain 15% spell haste. Haste is awesome as a caster. After you cast Moonfire, Regrowth, or Insect Swarm. Lasts 15 seconds. This effect has a 1-minute cooldown. However, when you gain Lunar or Solar Eclipse, the cooldown of Nature's Grace is instantly reset. So what does that mean for us? That means that when we hit our Eclipse state, we want to redot. We want a Moonfire and we want an Insect Swarm. Especially when we hit Solar Eclipse, which boosts, what's wrong with me today, guys? Boosts our nature damage. We're going to get all this big buff to nature damage. We want to be firing off our Sunfire, which is buffed by nature, and our Insect Swarm, which is also nature damage, because it's going to tick for a hell of a lot more. That's also going to give us Nature's Grace. Nature's Grace is going to increase our haste, which affects the dots. So what does that mean for us, really, as a little technical tip, is we want to fire off Insect Swarm first to proc Nature's Grace, because that's the weaker of the 2 dots, and then fire off the Sunfire, so that Sunfire has all that haste mixed into it as well to tick further. You understand what I'm saying, guys? So we want that haste on our Sunfire, which is the heavy hitting dot. So we firstly want to be casting Insect Swarm to get the Nature's Grace buff, then we want to cast Sunfire. That doesn't mean we're going to recast Insect Swarm, waste of time. What we want to be doing then is firing off the big Wraths that have also got this Nature's Grace buff. So we get a lot more Wraths and move back over to our Lunar Eclipse even faster. Genesis. Increase the healing done by your periodic spells of Swiftmen. Blah, blah, blah. Boring, we don't heal. And increase the duration of your Moonfire and Insect Swarm by 6 seconds. So the longer the dots last until we get to our next Eclipse, the better. Balance of Power. Increase your Nature and Arcane spell damage by 2%. Yum yum. And more importantly, increases your spell hit additional by Spirit. Let's skip that a little bit. But basically, it's got because we can pick up leather healing gear. That's not a waste for us because that Spirit is actually hit for us, okay? And we need spell hit as a caster. So that Spirit items are not a waste for us as a Moonkin, as a caster, because that Spirit is hits for us, and that comes from Balance of Power. Euphoria. While not in an Eclipse state, you have a 24% chance to double the solar and lunar energy generated by your Wrath and Starfire when they deal damage. What does this mean? Well, we only have the Eclipse state until our little energy pointer here moves back to the midway point. Once it hits the midway point, it's going to drop our Eclipse, and then we need to quickly move back over to an Eclipse. So what this means is, using Euphoria, is as soon as we come out of Eclipse, our spells are going to bump us straight back into this sort of, back into an Eclipse even faster, so we can get the big buff to our spell damage, okay? That's what Euphoria is. Moonkin form is our laser turkey mode. It gives us loads of extra damage. It's all good. It increases spell haste of all the raid by 5%. So we want to be in Moonkin form all the damn time, because we get a big damage buff. Typhoon. Typhoon is our knockback. No doubt you've been in a dungeon where a Moonkin keeps typhooning stuff. You can just glyph it, guys, if you don't need it. In endgame raids, Typhoon with the knockback is actually very, very useful. But in terms of 5-man dungeons, it's just annoying, especially when people are AoEing. But it's a nice AoE damage. It's not the best by any means, but it's a nice instant cast while we're having to move or anything like that. We can throw off our Typhoon. Shooting stars. Like a shooting star. I won't sing to you. You have a 4% chance when you deal damage with your Moonfire or Insect Swarm to instantly reset the cooldown of your Star Surge and make it instant cast. Okay? So we get instant cast Star Surges. What Star Surge? It's this extra spell we have that we need to keep on cooldown all the time. We need to be firing off. It's a big, heavy hitting spell. So Shooting Stars, we're going to have dots up all the time because our dots are awesome as a Moonkin. Our dots are so powerful that we get these instant cast Shooting Stars to fire off as well. So we get an instant cast Starfire, boom, off it goes. Alkin Frenzy. We take a lot of damage in Cataclysm. Previously, we didn't take that much damage as a DPS caster. We generally could stay away from damage relatively well. But during Cataclysm, there's a lot of AoE damage going on. And this gives us a 10% damage buff if we take some damage. So Alkin Frenzy is fucking awesome now, okay? So pick it up. 10% damage is huge. It's so good. Go and get it. 2 out of 2 in Gale Winds. Increase the damage done by a Hurricane and Typhoon spells by 30%. That's what we're after. We're not bothered about Cyclone particularly. But when we do have to cast Typhoon, we're going to stick them 2 points in Gale Winds so our Typhoon hits really, really hard. A filler point that I take, that you can either take in Solarbeam or Dream State. Dream State gives you more mana when you innovate yourself. Solarbeam is great for 5-mans because there's a lot of people who don't interrupt in 5-mans. As we said in our guides, we should be interrupting all the time. If you're a better player, you should be interrupting all the damn time. But you'll find a lot of times people don't. That's okay, because we've got Solar Beam. Creates an awesome Solar Beam. Let me fire off a Solar Beam for you. Woo! Doesn't that look fucking cool? Like the Ray of God. So the Ray of God comes down, silences everything inside it, so you're really helping out your party, but just firing off a Solar Beam. That's all it's there for, okay? It's really handy for 5-mans. Force of Nature, a nice DPS cooldown. We fire off 3 crazy trees that go mental and start attacking for us, our little pets. If you're doing a raid and you know Bloodlust coming, try and fire them just before Bloodlust so they get the benefit of Bloodlust while they're up. They need to be alive when Bloodlust is cast or anything like that. But in general, we want to be using them straight away, get them on cooldown so we can use them again in a fight. They're only 3 minutes. Generally, a fight will last longer than 3 minutes, so fire them off at the start, get your Treants on the go. They don't do tremendous damage by any means, but they're a cooldown to be used, okay? Sunfire. Now, what is this? While it's Solar Eclipse, your Moonfire spell will morph into Sunfire. All that means is that Moonfire and Sunfire are our most powerful dot because they benefit from both eclipses really well. While Insect Swarm only benefits from Solar Eclipse because it's a nature spell only. Our Moonfire, every time we go into Lunar, Moonfire is an arcane spell as basic, so that gets a huge buff. And when we go into Solar, which is our nature buff, it turns into Sunfire and gets an even better benefit. Sunfire hurts. It hurts the face. It makes you upset. Sunfire owns. Earth and Moon, your Wrath, Starfire, Wild Mushroom, Detonate spells, which is the best one because it's going to do everything, which increase spell damage taken by 8%. So it's a debuff for all the mobs for an 8% debuff. It's the same debuff that is applied by Unholy DKs and Assassination Rogues, but we take it because it also increases our spell damage by 2%. Alright, so we want to take that anyway. For a 2% spell damage buff, it's worth taking. So it's not a case of, oh, well, we've got an Unholy DK in the raid, so I don't particularly need to take Earth and Moon. Not the case. You want to pick that up for your increased 2% spell damage. This is one of the really tricky talents right here, guys. Lunar Shower. We'll have a quick read of it. When you cast Moonfire, you gain Lunar Shower. Lunar Shower increases the direct damage done by your Moonfire by 45%. 45%, that's huge, isn't it? And reduce the mana cost by 30%. This effect stacks up to 3 times and lasts 3 seconds. While under the effect, you generate, now this is the important part, your Moonfire generates 8 solar energy and your Sunfire generates 8 lunar energy. Because Blizzard, what happened was, Blizzard discovered that the dots on a Moonkin were so powerful, especially Moonfire, Sunfire, okay? They were so powerful. More importantly, Sunfire. And what happened is, Moonkins, before this talent, had basically free Sunfires because it didn't used to generate any energy. So what happened was in heavy AoE content is a Moonkin would go into Solar Eclipse and stay in Solar Eclipse. They would never cast a Wrath. And all they would do was spam Sunfire on everything. And it built up all this extra direct damage. It could dot millions of targets all the time. And it ticked for shitloads of damage. Really ridiculous amounts of damage. And you'd find Moonkins who stayed in Solar Eclipse all fucking day. Just dotting and pulling. I've seen logs of, say, Sinestra, which has a lot of whelps of Moonkins in the old school doing sort of 60 to 70,000 DPS because they just stayed in Solar. They're firing off big, heavy-hitting mushrooms, and they're sunfiring the crap out of everything without costing any mana because the mana cost was reduced by 90%, so it didn't cost anything to do it. So you've got a Moonkin who basically just ran around pressing one button, doing tremendous damage. So then they added Lunar Shower. So Lunar Shower, now every time we cast that Sunfire in our AoE situation, it's actually going to generate energy for us and get us out of Solar Eclipse. Now that's a bit tricky for us as a DPS class because we like the idea of actually staying in Solar Eclipse and doing all this incredible damage. Unfortunately, no longer the case. Lunar Shower is going to bring us out of that Eclipse. So what is the little trickery there is if you're in a fight, say Lord Rylith, where there is just permanent AoE to be done, what you'll find is Moonkins actually do not take Lunar Shower, take the mana hit, because it's going to be very, very expensive, drop those points out of Lunar Shower and stick them over into Dream State, and they innovate themselves on cooldown and stay in Solar Eclipse all the time, just firing off mushrooms and sunfires and do ridiculous damage still. So it's still very possible, but you have to drop Lunar Shower to do that. We're not going to do that in our dungeons because we do a combination of AoE, single target as well. So we're going to keep Lunar Shower for what we're doing. Our final big point is the bane of all Moonkins' lives and also our joy, Starfall. What is Starfall? From us, we create an aura of AoE. I'll stand here in between these and I'll fire off a Starfall for you. Now watch. Starfall just doesn't look like anything, but look, you see the way it's AoEing everything around us. You created this ball of AoE. Imagine like a sphere of AoE all the way around you. The problem with Starfall is it tends to aggro things that you weren't planning on aggroing. They've tried a lot to fix it, but it still has a few bugs, guys. So be a little bit wary of your Starfall. Think about it a little bit before you fire off the big Starfall, okay? But you do want to be using Starfall every time you get into a Lunar Eclipse. It's arcane damage. Get into Starfall as soon as that Lunar Eclipse procs, okay, guys? Going into the trees, we pick 1 out of 3 in Fury just to buff our mana by 5%. That's all we get out of that. Nice 5% maximum mana buff. It's a lot of mana, that. It's 5% of your maximum mana. It's so good. Blessing of the Grove. Forget the healing, but it increases the direct damage of your Moonfire by 6%. We're going to be Moonfiring all the time. We've got to make sure our Moonfire's clicking away. It also affects Sunfire. So we've got a nice 6% damage buff to that. We take Heart of the Wild, which increases our intellect, which is both spell power and mana, by 6%, which is awesome. So much extra stuff, so you want Heart of the Wild. We then take it to Natural Shapeshifter, which doesn't benefit us at all, because we don't try and change shape a lot. We just want to stay in Moonkin form. But it does give us the access to Master Shapeshifter. Moonkin form increases all spell damage by 4%. So we've got all these extra spell damage buffs, guys, okay? Very easy talents to take. Any changes you do want to make, if you want to be a bit cheesy with your AoE, go ahead and drop Lunar Shower, stick it over into Dream Stake so you can innovate yourself on cooldown and get a lot more mana from it. Because this, if you drop Lunar Shower and you're dotting all the time, which is the only reason you would drop Lunar Shower, you're going to go really fast. Okay, guys, it's going to cost you a shitload to keep dotting and dotting and dotting. So you want to take Dream State so you can buff all your mana. Other than that, don't worry about Dream State, guys. You shouldn't be having mana issues because every time we swap into the other Eclipses, as we did from Nature's Grace, from Genesis, sorry, we're going to buff all our mana back. I'm sorry, I'm telling absolutely lies. It's from Euphoria. Every time we get into an Eclipse, we get 16% of our total mana back, and we swap Eclipses a lot. Going into Glyphs. Some decent glyphs. First of all, let's buff our dots. Our dots are our primary source of damage. They're so awesome. We want to keep them ticking. So Glyph of Moonfire, buff the damage of Moonfire. Glyph of Insect Swarm, buff the damage of Insect Swarm. And then we go ahead and we take Wrath. Wrath is slightly more powerful than Starfire. So we want to take the damage done by a Wrath because we fire them off really fast. They're slightly less cast time than Starfire, so they're going to be firing off really fast. Let's get a lot of damage out of those. Glyph of Monsoon, reduce the cooldown of your Typhoon spell by 3 seconds. I take that just to nicely buff, keep Typhoon ready. What tends to happen is in heroics where tanks die, that's when I'll start using Typhoon. I don't readily use it all the time, but if I do, if I've got a decent tank, I'll go ahead and swap that Glyph out. Glyph of Innovate isn't that important anymore. If we do have to innovate somebody else, which has been nerfed to the ground, then they are going to get a little bit more mana. In emergency situations, guys, Glyph of Innovate is okay, but it's not great. Innovate is garbage now for other people. It's really just for us. The problem was guilds stacking Moonkins and Feral Druids and just firing off Innovates on the healers all the time, keeping their mana nice and high. I'd take the Glyph just in case of emergencies. In Heroics, remember, this isn't for a raid. In Heroics, it really is a case of we run into situations where the emergencies take place, and I like Glyph of Innovate for that. Glyph of Starfall, reduce the cooldown of your Starfall by 30 seconds. That generally means that every time we get back into Lunar, we're going to have Starfall ready, and that's why I like to take that. The other stuff, Glyph of Dash, why not? Reduce the cooldown of your dash. Glyph of Mark of the Wild, so because we're going to buff our group, we want it to be nice and cheap. If we have to res somebody and rebuff them, it's not going to cost us a ton of mana. And Glyph of Unburden Rebirth, the most important glyph, beyond anything for me as a druid, is so we don't have to cast reagents to cast combat res. Combat res is always available to us. Let's get that glyph in, so it's always there. We don't have to worry about it. Let's look at our gearing and reforging. What are our stats? Intellect. Intellect and spell power. As with all casters, intellect is our juicy burger of a stat, okay, guys? We need as much intellect as possible. We can't reforge for intellect, so we need to get our intellect up there, and that is only through gemming. So unless you have a 20 intellect bonus, gem pure intellect, okay? That's as easy as I can say it. Next, we need hit, which can come from spirit or hit itself. So in general, we want some nice spirit up there to get up to our hit cap. I'm very close, as you can see there. 60, where are we? 17.15. I'm 1.1. I'm 0.15 over the hit cap, okay, guys? But as you can see, 0% chance to miss. That's what you're after. You don't want to miss. You want that 17% hit. So you need to get that from both spirit and hit, okay, guys? So if you got a spirit on it, and that's the bonus for you. You want spirit items just to buff your hit up nice and tidy. Next comes Haste. Haste is amazing because it's going to cast our spells faster. It also makes our dots tick faster. And the faster we cast spells, the quicker we get back into other Eclipse. because we cast much faster. And then by that, we get more mana. We can keep DPSing harder. We cast more spells. But most importantly, Haste is so good because it's going to keep switching us back into other Eclipses faster and faster and faster. Okay, guys? That's all we want. Intellect, Spirit, or Hit, and Haste. Get as much Haste as you can after that. Really buff up the speed of your spells so you're getting back into other Eclipses quicker. And you're casting dots quicker, which are ticking harder. Dead easy. So as we move it down, you can see that after that, it's more about mastery. Buff our mastery. It's a quick view of our mastery. Total Eclipse of the Hearts. How good is that? Increase the bonus damage from Eclipse by 24%. Because Eclipse is so powerful, this huge buff that we get when we get into our Eclipse, that's where Mastery comes in and really buffs up our damage. We're not too bothered about crit. Crit will come anyway, but we generally want to buff our Mastery. So we'll just look, quick flick through. As you can see, we had a 20 intellect bonus on our pants. So I put the 20 int 20 spirit gem in there, which is basically for us translates as intellect hit. If I was to put 2 40 intellect gems in there, I would only lose 20 hits. So it's a benefit to us with that 20 int bonus just to go ahead and stick that blue gem in there. And if you're looking for a yellow gem socket, as we've got on our chest, again, we had a 20 intellect bonus. So we've gone with a 20 intellect, 20 haste rating, and just to buff our ints up. So we only gained from there. Okay, guys? Really easy. And if you've got a red socket, all the better. Go ahead and stick 40 intellect in there. The same we've done there. We gained 30 spirit. So you see a combination of gear here. Nothing special. That's it for now. I'm going to jump into the heroic, guys. I hope you understood everything I said there. They are a bit tricky. I'm not pretending to talk about absolutely everything about Moonkins here. I'm going to go and get in a heroic and give you a full demonstration of that. All right, guys? Bye.